The front gates of Lincoln Heights Academy closed with a soft metallic click behind Marcus Reed as he stepped onto the school grounds. It was a quiet Wednesday morning, the kind where the air still held a trace of dawn and the noise of traffic hadn't yet swallowed the city. Parents were scarce at this hour. Most had already dropped off their children and hurried on to work. Marcus had taken the morning off for one reason only: his daughter. He adjusted the strap of his worn leather messenger bag on his shoulder and glanced at the building ahead. Red brick walls, tall windows, banners boasting excellence, discipline, future leaders. His daughter, Alana, was 10 years old and had transferred to this school only 3 months earlier. It was supposed to be an opportunity: better resources, smaller classes, safer halls. That was what the brochure promised. Marcus had promised Alana he would attend her class presentation today. She had practiced for weeks, reciting lines in the living room, correcting herself when she stumbled, glowing every time he applauded. "You'll be there, right, Dad?" she had asked the night before, eyes wide with hope. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," he had said. And he meant it. He had barely taken 10 steps past the gate when a sharp voice cut through the quiet. "Excuse me, sir." Marcus turned. A white man in a Navy security jacket was approaching him quickly, one hand already hovering near the radio clipped to his shoulder. His expression was polite on the surface, but tight around the eyes. "Yes," Marcus replied calmly. "Can I help you?" the guard asked. "Visitors need to check in at the front office. What's your business here?" Marcus nodded. "Of course, I'm here for my daughter's class presentation. 4th grade, Ms. Keller's class." The guard looked him up and down, not subtly. The worn shoes, the jacket Marcus had bought on sale years ago, the dark skin, the bag. His gaze lingered a second too long. "Name?" the guard asked. "Marcus Reed." The guard tapped something into a small tablet. His jaw tightened. "I don't see you listed." Marcus frowned slightly. "I spoke with the teacher last week. She told me parents could come in this morning." The guard shifted his weight, his tone sharpening. "Sir, for safety reasons, we can't just let anyone walk around campus. You'll need to wait here while I verify." Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the quiet, controlled anger he had learned to master over a lifetime of moments like this. He had been stopped before, at stores, at conferences, outside his own apartment building, always polite, always routine. "All right," he said evenly. "I'll wait." Minutes passed. Students streamed by, barely glancing at him. A few parents walked in without being stopped at all. Marcus noticed that none of them were black. The guard returned, now joined by a woman in a crisp blazer and heels that clicked sharply against the pavement. She held a clipboard and wore the practiced expression of authority. "I'm the assistant principal," she said without introducing herself. "There's been some confusion. You weren't on the approved visitor list." Marcus met her eyes. "I'm here for my daughter, Alana Reed." Her brows knit together. "Reed. Reed." She scanned the clipboard. "Which classroom?" "Ms. Keller, 4th grade." The woman hesitated, then looked back at the guard. "We've had incidents recently. We're just being cautious." Marcus let out a slow breath. "I understand caution, but I am her father. I shouldn't have to stand outside like this." Before she could respond, the front doors of the school opened again. A tall man with silver hair stepped out, straightening his tie as he walked. His posture was confident, his presence commanding. The assistant principal stiffened. "Good morning, Dr. Whitman," she said quickly. The man glanced over, and then stopped. His eyes fixed on Marcus. For a brief second, the busy schoolyard seemed to fade away. The color drained from his face, replaced by something else. Recognition. He took a step closer, studying Marcus carefully, as if confirming something he already knew. "Marcus Reed?" he said quietly. Marcus turned toward him, surprised. "Yes." The principal swallowed. It's been a long time." The guard and assistant principal exchanged confused looks. Dr. Whitman straightened, his voice suddenly firm. This man is to be treated as a guest of this school. Immediately. He turned back to Marcus, his expression no longer guarded, but deeply unsettled. I had no idea your daughter attended Lincoln Heights, he said. Please, come inside. We need to talk. And as the gates opened once more, Marcus stepped forward, unaware that this moment, this recognition, was about to force the school to confront truths it had long ignored. The office of the principal smelled faintly of lemon polish and old paper, the kind of room that tried to project authority through silence. Marcus stood near the door, his hands relaxed at his sides, while two security officers positioned themselves just far enough away to look casual. They were both white, both wearing identical expressions, polite on the surface, guarded underneath. The kind of look Marcus had learned to recognize years ago. Through the glass wall, he could still see the hallway where parents moved freely, laughing, signing forms, hugging their children. No one stopped them. No one asked for identification. The principal, Mrs. Helen Crowley, shuffled through a folder on her desk without looking up. Her movements were slow, deliberate, as if the papers themselves were more important than the man standing in front of her. Mr. She paused, squinting at the page. Johnson? Marcus Johnson, he said calmly. I'm here to pick up my daughter, Ava. She's in Mrs. Klein's third-grade class. Mrs. Crowley nodded, still not meeting his eyes. We've had a situation recently, she said. An attempted abduction. As you can imagine, we have to be extremely careful. Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his chest. Not fear, but exhaustion. I understand, he replied. That's why I'm listed as her father on every form. Emergency contact, pickup authorization, everything. One of the security officers cleared his throat. Sir, we just need to verify who you are. Marcus reached into his jacket slowly, deliberately, the way black men learned to move when authority figures were watching. He pulled out his wallet and held up his ID without stepping forward. Before he could hand it over, Mrs. Crowley finally looked up. Her face changed. It wasn't dramatic, not a gasp, not a shout, but something unmistakable flickered across her eyes. Recognition. Sharp and immediate. She froze. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. One of the security guards noticed and glanced at her, confused. Mrs. Crowley? He asked. She didn't answer right away. Her gaze stayed locked on Marcus's face, then dropped to the name on the ID, then back to his face again. Her lips parted slightly, as if she were about to say something and thought better of it. Marcus? Johnson, she repeated, slower this time. Yes, he said, watching her carefully now. The guard reached for the ID, but Mrs. Crowley raised a hand, sharp, quick. That won't be necessary, she said. The guards exchanged looks. Marcus lowered his wallet, but his posture didn't change. Years of discipline kept his voice steady. Is there still a problem? Mrs. Crowley stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. No, she said, too quickly. No problem at all. She smoothed the front of her blazer, suddenly flustered. There's been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that required security? Marcus asked quietly. Her face flushed. We didn't recognize you at first. Marcus held her gaze. You didn't recognize a black father standing in his daughter's school. The words weren't raised. They didn't need to be. The guards shifted uncomfortably. One of them looked at the floor. Mrs. Crowley swallowed. Mr. Johnson, please understand. I do, Marcus interrupted gently. I always do. Another silence fell, heavier than the last. Mrs. Crowley glanced toward the hallway, then back at him, her voice dropping. Ava talks about you, she said. All the time? Marcus blinked, surprised despite himself. She says you help her with her reading every night, the principal continued, that you never miss a school event. A muscle twitched in Marcus's jaw. That's what fathers do. Mrs. Crowley nodded, shame now clearly written across her face. Of course, when I saw the name, I realized. Realized what? Marcus asked. She hesitated. That you're the same Marcus Johnson. The guards looked up sharply. The one from the district board, Mrs. Crowley added quietly. Marcus said nothing. She exhaled. I should have recognized you immediately. That's interesting, Marcus replied, because my daughter's last name is on every classroom door. He let the words sit. I'll have Ava brought up right away, Mrs. Crowley said, and I'll make sure this doesn't happen again. Marcus nodded once. I hope so. As she hurried to the intercom, the guards stepped back, suddenly unsure of their place in the room. One of them murmured an apology under his breath. Marcus didn't respond. Through the glass, he saw Ava walking toward the office, her small backpack bouncing against her shoulders. She spotted him instantly and broke into a grin. Daddy! She ran into his arms, and Marcus knelt to catch her, the tension in his body easing just a fraction. Biz. Crowley watched the moment, her expression complicated, admiration tangled with regret. Marcus stood, Ava's hand in his, and turned toward the door. Mr. Johnson, the principal said softly. He paused. I'm sorry, she said. Truly. Marcus met her eyes one last time. So am I, he replied, that my daughter had to see this. He walked out with Ava, past the guards, past the hallway of free-moving parents, his grip firm but gentle. Behind him, the principal remained standing, staring at the closed door, realizing that the moment she recognized his name was the moment she understood just how wrong she had been. The hallway outside the principal's office smelled faintly of floor cleaner and old paper, the kind of scent Marcus hadn't noticed since his own school days. He stood with his hands loosely at his sides, shoulders squared but calm, while a security officer hovered a little too close behind him. Inside the office, voices murmured, low, tense, hurried. The door finally opened. Principal Eleanor Whitman stepped out first. She was a composed woman in her late 50s, silver hair pinned neatly behind her ears, posture always straight, always controlled. But the moment her eyes met Marcus's face fully, without the glass, without the distance, something in her expression cracked. Her breath caught. Her lips parted slightly. Colour drained from her cheeks. Marcus, she said quietly, as if saying his name too loudly might shatter the moment. The security officer frowned. You know him, ma'am. Whitman didn't answer right away. Her gaze never left Marcus, as though she was seeing two people at once, the tall black man standing in front of her, and someone else layered beneath the surface of memory. Yes, she finally said. I do. Marcus gave a small nod, his voice steady. Good afternoon, Principal Whitman. The officer stiffened. So, this is resolved? Whitman straightened abruptly, professionalism snapping back into place, but now it was tinged with urgency. Yes, thank you, Officer Reynolds. You may return to your post. The officer hesitated, then stepped away, casting Marcus a final suspicious glance before disappearing down the hall. For a moment, silence hung between them. Whitman gestured toward the open office door. Please, come in. Inside, the office was immaculate. Awards lining the walls, framed photos of graduating classes, inspirational quotes about integrity and excellence. Marcus noticed one photo near the desk, a much younger Whitman standing beside a group of teenagers at a scholarship ceremony from nearly 20 years ago. He recognized himself immediately. Whitman followed his gaze. You remember? I do, Marcus said. You were the assistant principal back then. She nodded slowly. You were extraordinary. Top of your class. Debate team, student council. Everyone said you were going places. Her voice softened. I never forgot your name. Marcus sat when she gestured to the chair, but he didn't relax. Then you understand why this is happening now? Whitman exhaled and lowered herself into her seat. Your daughter, she said. Lena. Marcus's jaw tightened at the sound of her name. She was pulled out of class, questioned, treated like a problem before anyone thought to call me. Whitman pressed her lips together. I've reviewed the incident report. There were assumptions made. Assumptions, Marcus repeated. Because she's black. Because I'm black. Whitman didn't deny it. Her silence was confirmation enough. There was a call made, she said carefully, from a staff member who claimed there was a concern about Lena's pickup arrangements. Marcus leaned forward slightly. I pick her up every day. Same time, same car, same ID on file. I know, Whitman said, her voice tight. And that's why this should never have escalated. Marcus's eyes hardened, not with anger alone, but with disappointment. You taught us better than this, he said quietly. You told us education was supposed to protect kids like us. Open doors, not lock them. Whitman swallowed. The words landed heavy because she knew they were true. I failed today, she admitted, and so did my school. A knock interrupted them. A teacher peeked in, whispering something urgently. Whitman's eyes widened as she listened. She looked back at Marcus. There's something you need to see, she said. Something that changes how this will end. Marcus rose slowly, heart pounding, not with fear now, but with the sense that the truth was finally stepping into the light. The silence in the principal's office felt heavier than anything Marcus had ever known. It wasn't the tense silence of accusation anymore, it was the stunned quiet of recognition, regret, and fear. Principal Harris slowly stood up, her chair scraping softly against the floor, her eyes fixed on Marcus as if he had transformed into someone else entirely. Mr. Cole, she said again, her voice now careful, almost reverent. Please, sit down. Marcus didn't move at first. Years of being stopped, questioned, and doubted had taught him that apologies often came too late, and invitations to sit were sometimes just a way to regain control. Only when his daughter squeezed his hand did he finally lower himself into the chair beside her. Principal Harris turned the computer screen toward them. On it was a web page from the district's website, an old press release. The headline read, Local Community Leader, Honored for Youth Advocacy and Educational Reform. Beneath it was a photo of a much younger Marcus, standing in front of a crumbling school building, smiling despite the exhaustion in his eyes. You were the one, she said quietly. You led the lawsuit that forced the district to rebuild Eastwood Elementary. You funded the after-school literacy program. You, her voice cracked. You're the reason I became a principal. Marcus exhaled slowly. I didn't do it for recognition, he said. I did it so kids like my daughter wouldn't have to fight just to be seen as belonging. The assistant principal and the security officer stood frozen near the door, their earlier certainty draining from their faces. The security officer cleared his throat. I'm sorry, sir. I was just following protocol. Marcus looked at him, calm but unwavering. Protocol shouldn't make a child feel unsafe at her own school, and it shouldn't assume a black father doesn't belong. Emily finally spoke, her voice small but steady. They said my dad didn't look like a parent. The words landed harder than any accusation. Principal Harris closed her eyes for a moment, then straightened, resolve replacing shock. This should never have happened, she said, and it won't end here. Within minutes, the atmosphere shifted from damage control to accountability. The school district's legal counsel was called. The superintendent was notified. Statements were requested. Policies were pulled up, highlighted, questioned. But for Marcus, the most important moment came when Principal Harris knelt in front of Emily, meeting her at eye level. You did nothing wrong, she said gently, and your father did nothing wrong. I promise you, this school will do better. Emily nodded, still holding her father's hand. As they left the office later that afternoon, the hallway felt different. Teachers who had once looked past Marcus now watched him with a mix of curiosity and unease. He wasn't invisible anymore, but that wasn't the victory. The victory was Emily walking beside him, her head held high, knowing that her father belonged everywhere she did, and that no one had the right to question that again.